What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Sophisticated Man podcast. I am here with another guest, Mr. Alex. What's going on, man?
All is good. All is good. Just been training today. Had a few clients, and now obviously here with you, ready to get into some real discussion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Alex is more or less like a holistic health coach. I don't know if that's exactly how you describe yourself. What would you say that is essentially the nature of your work and what you do?
So basically, I'm focusing on an approach that emphasizes the whole entity. So rather than just looking at people by their physical sort of ailments or symptoms or as the physicality, you're basically understanding that there's more to us that we can't see. So it's about making the invisible visible and acknowledge that we're comprised of an interconnected parts. So simply your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, you can't see these things, but these are obviously impactful to our overall state of being. And that's where we look into those aspects and how we can optimize that, like overall, really, the person.
Hmm. I like it. Yeah, very much a holistic approach to health and wellness, mindfulness. It sounds like
Yeah,
um, very similar things that I believe in as well. So that's kind of why we connected initially, was because we had very similar values and viewpoints on that. So yeah, it's exciting to see where this conversation can go today.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, brother. So I'm curious, with you being a health coach or a holistic wellness coach, in your eyes, I know you definitely work with probably a wider variety of people, like men, maybe women as well.
Yeah.
Um, what have you seen in terms of specifically the men that you work with? Because I speak to men. What have you noticed there being the biggest issues that men typically have in health, wellness, mindfulness, that you've noticed?
Generally speaking, when dealing with males, we're looking more at the identification with what being a male actually means, right? Aside from our anatomy, you can easily say that males are more logical, predominantly, whereas in comparison to females who are more emotional. The problem is society at large has basically made us seem or assume that we're one way. So we're coming to basically think, oh yeah, the male should be this way, the female should be this way. And what's the problem with that is there's no integration. So if we're to be comprised of 26 chromosomes each
Hmm.
of both mother and father, then if we're just performing the masculine, the male part of that, then what's happening to the feminine part? What's happening to the mum's chromosomes? Where's that being attributed into our daily sort of performance? And then you'll see that there's no integration, and that's the key. There's a lack of integration, and so we'll conform to this idea that the male has to be this way, and a lot of that is emotion. There's an emotional lack. There's a lack of sort of marrying the logic and the emotion together. So left side, right side of the brain should be focusing on, should be acting as one whole, but they're not. So there's a lot of sort of lack of alignment with men that I sort of speak to.
Mm, okay.
Yeah,
I hear you. I hear you. It sounds a lot like the men that you've worked with are experiencing issues kind of aligning both the masculine traits and the feminine traits being like maybe emotional intelligence,
yeah,
emotional regulations, awareness, things like that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
yeah. So a classic example would be the typical sort of behavior that you'll see at like a pub in England, where the slightest sort of emotion shown or feeling or care or empathy shown, immediately you're sort of seen as being like, quote unquote, a pussy or whatnot.
Mm,
um, and the problem with that is men then go into themselves and then don't feel that they can speak out when it comes to the more feminine attributes. We're one whole. We're not just, we're not all just male aspects of ourselves. You got to think about that combination, the holistic integration of the left and the right brain hemisphere.
hmm
And the only way that can actually happen and be facilitated is if you have an awareness of what it actually is that you're doing. It's a case of, if there's no criteria, if there's no like toolkit, then there's no direction, and this is the problem. So what needs to happen is an upgrade, and how that upgrade occurs is again through awareness, and mostly it requires healing the wounds,
hmm
healing those largely childhood traumas, and recognize that the thoughts and behaviors and projections that are being sort of expressed all stem from that, from the lack of actually looking at them, being aware of them. So it's unconscious.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I see a lot of that in the clients that I work with. Typically, a lot of the work that I do with them is, I wouldn't say a lot of it, but a good portion of it ties back into that inner child
Yeah.
awareness and knowing, hey, this is something that I've been dealing with because when I was a
Mm.
kid, somebody made fun of me and I felt like I couldn't speak up anymore because my voice was silenced when I was a child. And
Mm.
now as an adult, you feel like you can't speak up. It's like small things like that that we
Yeah.
think they don't mean much when we're kids, but when we grow up, we realize, damn, I'm still holding on to that. And I actually just said this to one of my clients not too long ago, is the things that we hold on to as children end up being the
Mm.
things that hold us back as adults if we don't deal with them.
Yeah.
So very, very much true of what you're saying now.
Mm.
Um, I think that's really important work that men typically don't think about. Like we don't think about like bringing awareness to who that little boy is and
Mm.
how he was raised, how the experiences that he's had
Yeah.
affect the way that we show up today.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so it's super important. How do you
Yeah.
think how at least in your process, how do you bring guys into that awareness to to start looking at that kind of stuff?
So it's again it's about ultimately developing a spiritual awareness.
Mm,
So it's quite a confusing term. Like people think again, spirit is some like mystical thing, right? So spirit, by virtue of its etymology, meaning the origin of the word, where it actually comes from, is Latin for from breath within. So breath
mm,
within. We all breathe, right? So we're all functioning as spirit. Again, it's not a physical thing. So once you develop that, you basically can then go into how your mind and your body are intertwined. And
mm,
then you can go into how the emotion, there's an emotional body involved.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are non-physical things. You can't touch them. You can't hold a 3D representation of a thought or emotion in your hand. So what you need to do then really is develop that awareness, make them actually knowing that that's what you're dealing with. How are you going to nurture that spirituality?
Mm.
A lot of it is overwhelmed by the ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just a term that Sigmund Freud made up. Psychotherapist, everyone, well, most people know him. And again, the ego is there as a protection. It's there as a mask or a persona, which actually, again, is Latin for mask.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to figure out, or people need to figure out who they are when that ego is quiet. And the
Mm.
only way you can do that is being in stillness and being honest with yourself and having, again, the time to actually acknowledge that there are things going on that you don't like and then pay attention to it. Don't ignore the signs. Otherwise, you're just going to keep getting slapped in the face.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
because again, it's painful. Like it hurts to actually acknowledge that there's something that's not right, that doesn't sit well with you, and you've got to apply some depth. And again, this is where spirituality comes in. It's by knowing that you're more than this mask, this body, and that's exactly what it is. It's letting people know that that's what they have to do, and it goes from there really.
Mm-hmm.
That's mainly how it goes. So you talk it through with them, um, and then you show them how they can actually go about this in a way which is practical. And the
Mm.
best way to do that, from my experience, is train your body. And when you do that, when you actually put effort into building yourself, all of that sort of perseverance will transfer into other areas of your life. So my sort of slogan is working out is working inwards.
Mm.
So I need to really copyright that actually, um,
Yeah.
because it is so relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again tapping into the heart, which is another kind of mystical term that people will just think you're weird for saying. Um, but when you do that, it's imagine the heart as another brain. So
Yeah.
when your mind is talking to you, it's different to when your heart is talking to you. And I teach people to see the heart as a compass to guide you, to steer you to what is right. Hence, the word compassion comes from compass. So
Mm.
this is how you can again start to listen to that and start to move with that. And again, there's more ways to actually go about that, which we can explore a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more in a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely resonate with a lot of what you said. Like finding space and getting yourself in a quiet zone to kind of like tap into that because I
Yeah,
talk about that a lot as well.
yeah,
um, if we're constantly overstimulated with our phones, with conversations of people, TV, media, all this stuff just completely zoning in on our conscious, we
mm,
can't really understand what's happening, on a subconscious level
yeah,
because we're so tuned into all the stimulation. So I
mm,
very much do agree, like being outside and being alone, being in
mm,
especially nature, like being around trees that provide oxygen, that give you that space. Um, Extremely important.
Yeah,
Something that I think more so spiritual coaches do talk about, but it is a very like there's science that backs up what what we're talking about here,
yeah,
of just working on your parasympathetic nervous system. Like it literally calms you down the more that you work on that breathing. Um,
yeah,
so there's some very true things to what we're saying here.
yeah.
Um, I usually find that the problem, at least the problem that my clients typically have gone through and stuff that I've gone through too,
Mm,
is getting to that presence, getting to that present moment and being kind of, being here, not being in our heads. You kind of mentioned it,
yeah,
following that heart space instead of just our head. Because guys,
mm,
we get stuck up here in our minds because
yeah,
we are very logical. We are the critical thinkers. So we spend a lot of time in our minds.
yeah.
Uh how how important is it, do you think, to really tap into that presence and learn to just kind of be more in their body than in their heads?
Yeah, again, it like you said, it all stems from your breathing.
Mhm.
Um, in my personal training, I'm a personal trainer as well. I emphasize the breath massively. So essentially, when you're going to actually do a movement, I get them to inhale to initiate the movement, and then the exhale is the explosion or expression, right? So in the same way in which you execute a movement with your body correctly
Mhm.
to obviously hit the muscle, maintain tension, etc., you do the same thing to attain a certain sense of presence. So it's there's many ways to do it. For me, I just close my eyes and I imagine my breath being channeled up to like pipes coming up, and then the sensation I feel is determined just by the very fact that I can't focus on anything but that. When you just focus on your breath, you can't think of anything else, and
Mhm.
that's how you can become still.
Mm.
Um, Again, it's quite tedious for a lot of people to do that because there's that internal sort of chatter going on. But if you want to take control over that instead of letting it control you, then it's one of the best places to start is by doing that. Um,
Mhm.
Not being afraid of your thoughts either. Acknowledge they're not you. Actually, that's that's a big one.
Yep.
Your thoughts aren't you. They're external, largely societal, and mostly again subconscious. What 90% of our thoughts are subconscious, meaning
Mhm.
below conscious,
Mhm.
and so it's about taking the observer stance. Observe yourself. Observe yourself not as the thoughts, but rather the observer of the thoughts themselves.
Mhm.
And that is yeah, you try not to identify with them as much. I'm still
Mhm.
practicing this myself. So yeah, it's very valuable, especially when you're in a sauna, for example. I love to go to the sauna, steam room. I love to be doing hot and cold contrasts. So cold showers, amazing work,
Mhm.
amazing for your nervous system
Mhm.
and your ability to deal with stress,
Yep.
not being reactive, which again is a massive one for males, mainly I would say,
Mhm. Mhm. Oh yeah.
because there's a lot of you know uh, anatomical comparisons, so to speak. Who's the biggest, who's got the biggest what, and then you get kind of you always want to try and one up people, and this is the problem. Um, but again, I don't think people are conscious that they're doing it per se, or they see it as a bad thing. So yeah, I mean that's another another whole topic right there.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I wanted to jump off of the meditation thing for just a second because I think that that's an
Yeah,
important piece of it because I know a lot of people, mostly my clients will typically say this when they start. Like I've worked with them and they've gotten better at it, but I've had a lot of people, especially guys that have never done something like that before. Like maybe someone's watching this and they're like, "Yeah, I've heard about meditation. I just never have gotten into it." I know in the beginning, and I've
yeah,
had this experience too, you start to focus on your breathing and your thoughts just kind of, they do what they do. They get crowded in your mind and they continue to flood your head. And
mm,
we start thinking, well, I'm doing this wrong. It's not working for me. I can't get present. I'm still my
yeah,
mind is still racing. I'm not meditation doesn't work for me. I've heard that a lot.
yeah.
So what would you say for guys like that maybe find themselves struggling to have meditation or for that to work for them?
It's all about isolating yourself in an environment that's actually going to make it easier to do. So
Mhm.
imagine someone can't meditate because what they're near a busy road or
Yeah.
they've got like their phone not on silent or there's people around them. It's literally for me, it's it's just having developing the ability to just close your eyes and just focus only on what's within you, what comes up
Mhm.
naturally.
Yep.
That's it. It's like what comes up naturally. Don't try and overthink it, you know, and find yourself, like I said, in somewhere like a sauna, you
Mhm.
know, somewhere where
Mhm.
you can just be with yourself. Um, there's loads of places, loads of opportunities to do that. You can even put in some earphones, you know, and just block everything out. Close your eyes and just have some fun, have some breathing fun.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
that's what I would say. Like, is because I don't really practice it conventionally, to be honest.
Mhm.
Even when I'm like cycling on my bike, I'm just thoughts are coming to me, and I'm not ignoring them. I'm embracing everything that comes naturally. You know, so I'd say just don't be afraid to have thoughts that are contrary to what society has basically labeled as being a certain way. Be
Yep.
authentic with your thoughts because
Mhm.
that's coming from you. There's no one. That's not necessarily anyone else that's determining what you're thinking, or it's you have to come to your own conclusions rather than just doing what everyone else does.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. Especially the last part of what you said, like being authentic and
yeah,
learning to do things in your unique way because that is a huge part of masculinity in my opinion is being authentic and knowing to
yeah,
speak to your values, speak to your principles, speak to the things that matter to you and not just regurgitating what other people say because
mm,
you want to fit in or you want to get on everybody's good side. And
yeah,
it's funny that we're talking about this because my coach is teaching and going through this with me as well in terms of content. It's really about it's about being polarizing and it's about
yeah,
being a guy who's not afraid to stand for something, who's not afraid to say what he really thinks on a
yeah,
subject. Because if you look throughout history, um, the most influential, powerful leaders in the world, they were always very, I'm not going to say divisive, that's the wrong way to say it, but they're
yeah,
very polarizing. You either knew I love this person or I hated their guts because I did not like what they stood for. Either way, there's not a right or a wrong to that, but
yeah,
it's all stemming from being a person that has something to say, being someone that actually can stand on what they believe in. And I think for
Mm.
men, that's increasingly more important now, because I feel like men are essentially being silenced to kind of like be put in a little box, not to speak up and to say what they
Yeah,
think, because
yeah,
of, you could say the media, you could say the mainstream, you could say feminism. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that revolves into that.
yeah,
But I think a lot of men are afraid to really say what they think, I think, nowadays.
yeah. And you can only look at, again, the external sort of input. It's not really encouraging people to be authentic because,
No.
well, if you're truly authentic, you firstly come with no harm, no bad wishes on anyone, and when you're given sort of certain dialogues that or certain words that almost have you controlled in terms of what you can say,
Mm.
then we're looking at 1984, George Orwell
Yep.
of groupthink,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean that wasn't really written as science fiction. That was more of a predictive programming,
Yep.
and you know the intensity of anthropological study and social sciences, study of human behavior, behavioral studies,
Hmm.
will have predicted that, anticipated this where we are now.
Yep.
So again,
Yep.
that's very key to be aware of,
Hmm.
and a lot of people are unknowingly becoming part of the predictive programming in terms of what we're saying or what we're not
Hmm.
saying.
Yep.
So that's another really really important thing. Is are you happy to be part of like a statistic, like are you being real with yourself? And
Mm.
9 times out of 10 people are self-censoring.
Yep.
You don't, by self-censoring it doesn't mean you have to be harsh to somebody. If you're being, it's more, if you're going to say anything, do it with some at least value. there's
Hmm.
there's not, there's not enough value in what people are talking about.
Yeah.
It's just very, is very constructed. It's very conditioned.
Hmm.
It's not real. It's
Yeah.
you're not
Hmm.
being real, like, um,
Hmm.
and I get it, but there must be something that must be ticking underneath that wants to speak about something that others aren't. And for me in my coaching, it's about giving people the platform to be real, to speak out, and to not be
Yeah.
afraid of talking, communicating from the heart, with
Hmm.
chest, from that throat, rather than what's coming in here and just regurgitating.
Hmm.
And that's where it's at. Like it's bringing again the invisible, making it visible, and that's what
Hmm.
it's all about, man. There's layers
100%.
for sure.
Yeah. It's massive, because I think that there's so many people that are afraid to say something because they're like, oh, well, I don't want to get canceled, or I don't want to get judged by a certain person or a certain
Yeah,
group. We really live in the generation of, you could say, censorship, but it's more or less the generation of feelings matter more than actual fact and truth, because
yeah,
people would rather feel comfortable than hear the truth of what's really going on.
yeah,
Uh, I even said that in one of my recent posts. I was
yeah.
talking about this movie made in like 2002. Just to kind of reiterate that now, like,
Mm.
uh, basically there was a movie that showcased what I saw as like a nuclear family. The masculine figure was the father, the feminine obviously was the mother. They had
Yeah,
a really good dynamic. The family was they worked together. They were all superheroes, and then they they made a sequel like 15 years later. So this was like 2019. So right at the coming age of like a lot of the kind of woke politics that happen in these days. That's kind of right around then. And
Right.
the movie was made by Disney, which another rabbit hole we can go down. There's a lot of stuff about that company, but they basically made a sequel where the family was more or less divided. Like the father was like staying at home, taking care of the kids, doing dishes and raising children, and the mother was out there on a mission doing her thing. And I had an issue with that. So I was
Yeah.
like, I was like kind of pointing that out in my video. I said, you notice how a lot of these modern movies or these modern TV shows showcase a man who is supposed to be the provider, the protector, the leader,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
he's literally like at home with an apron on, cooking dinner for the kids.
Right.
And a lot of people got upset about that. They're like, "Well, if it's that much of a problem, change the channel. Like it shouldn't bother you, etc." And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I hate that excuse because that is basically saying, I know something's wrong with this. I understand that this is not correct, but I'm
Yeah.
choosing to ignore it because I don't want them to dislike me. And
Right.
that right there is the issue of not um, speaking what's true because you think, well, they're gonna be mad at me if I say something that they don't agree with.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's interesting about that, I don't know what the film you're referring to, but what is interesting about that is these assumed roles of both male and female, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you said to me, "Dad with the apron on,"
Yeah.
I can see that happening, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I can also see how that conflicts with this idea that that should be the woman instead. We've got
Mm-hmm.
to look again at the early years. You've got to look at how
Yeah.
children are being given toys like you know kitchen utensils for the girls, or Barbies for the girls, and Action Man for the boys,
Mm-hmm.
or like mechanic sort of gear. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
these sort of stereotypical sort of roles that are already being carried out from such a young age. It's just
Mm-hmm.
intergenerationally, it's passed down. So what needs to happen is, again, going back to the integration of, you can do both. We should be doing both. Like, this is what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's unsubscribing from the idea that men should be this way, women should be this way. I just see I just see it as adversarial. That adversarial
Mm-hmm.
meaning there's a to see the other gender as an enemy,
Mm-hmm.
when it's no,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're both equal. you just
Mm-hmm.
have you just have different skill sets. You're wired.
Sure.
You're by design. Our intelligent design of the body is more geared up to be, you know, better at, in a way, at one thing than the other, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say about providing, again, the man doesn't need to necessarily physically provide with money and with resources. It should be emotional provision. They should be providing emotionally. And when you do that, when you stack those foundations, the man is the infrastructure, and the woman is the in between that keeps it stable. So without that foundation, that physicality, the woman
Mm-hmm.
can't flourish, and therefore the man can't thrive as much. It can't be as resolute. It can't stand up as tall without the woman's input. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so again, integration is key. This is what it's about. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's interesting how how it's all being designed so that we see each other as enemies, and it's just it's I can just see
Hmm.
right through it. I can see right through it, man.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I do agree to a point with what you're saying. I do
Yeah.
think that, like, yes, we both have masculine and feminine energies, clearly, like we both, men and women both do. Um at the same time, I do think that there are roles, like you said, that
Yeah.
we both can fit into, that both, they essentially play into our strengths. Like if you're a guy that's more feminine, yeah, you probably would look at a movie like that and be like, I don't see anything wrong with that. I could be a stay-at-home dad, which, hey, if that's for you, fine, cool.
True.
But I think the issue is most guys typically don't align with that. I think
Yeah.
I would say, like, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong. I think a majority of guys have a desire to be masculine, but they're kind of being conditioned to say, or conditioned to think, that masculinity can look like I'm wearing pink dresses and picking flowers and
Yeah.
staying at
Yeah.
home taking care of kids, which is traditionally more of a feminine thing.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you that, like, we have to have that balance, but at the
Mm.
same time, I do think there's some kind of, you can call it an agenda, you can call it a conspiracy,
Yeah.
but I think that there is kind of a push of men being pushed to be a little bit more feminine, and women are pushed to be a little bit more masculine, even when that
Yeah.
goes against what they naturally want. At least
Yeah.
that's what I think.
No, you're right. You're right. It's like I was saying. Is we have built-in programs,
Hmm.
and what's happening is, like you're saying, there's an inversion going on, um,
Yeah.
a
Yep.
societal sort of plug-in that
Hmm.
is programming people to accept and to sort of buy into this idea that, oh yeah, we can do this, you can do this, and
Yeah.
by all means, it is kind of devaluing that innate the innate strengths that both genders have, and when combined,
Hmm.
that's when you've got the
Hmm.
power. That's the power, like finding
Yeah.
another who can complement that, and then you
Hmm.
become one whole unit again. Holistic
Yep.
is
Yep.
is being whole, and that is the same with relationships. And
Hmm.
it shouldn't be how women are the dominant ones doing all the work, all the housework and all of this stuff, and the guy just, he's come home from work, he wants to go and just relax on the TV without helping, and then they wonder
Yeah.
why the woman gets stressed, and it's like because
Hmm.
you're not
Hmm.
providing that support
Yep.
emotionally, and then the communication,
Yep.
yeah, it's all by design. Let's be real. Um,
Hmm.
so the question is, how do you remedy it? How do
Hmm.
we find a solution?
Yeah.
And it all goes back to realizing who we are, what we are,
Hmm.
and what we
Yep.
are is as a anatomical difference, but we have strengths and skills that are designed for that build. That's it.
Hmm.
That's it. But you can
Hmm.
obviously integrate both, but you want to be more predominant to what your natural design is, and then have that other influence come in, and then marry them
Hmm.
both together. And there you go.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
communication, all of these skills that are considered feminine, but they're
Yeah.
really not. They're, it's a wholesome thing
Hmm.
for real.
Yeah. I think what we're talking about here is such a misunderstood concept about the whole masculine and feminine dynamic thing, because
Yeah.
the way that I look at it, it sounds like you kind of view it the same way. The way I look at that is it's very much a spectrum and it's not binary. Like
Yeah.
nobody's 100% masculine, nobody's 100% feminine. That just doesn't exist.
No.
Like
No.
you have, I mean, even scientifically, men have testosterone, yes,
Yeah.
but we also have a very small percentage of estrogen, just as women have a small percentage of testosterone. It's not as much as men, but it's still there because without it, we'd be hormonally imbalanced. We would die,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a need for both in
Yeah.
many different senses of the word. And I think what people tend to forget is, well, yeah, like even though you're masculine, like we could
Mm.
probably, me and you can both identify as a masculine person,
Yeah.
meaning that we desire to be the leader, we desire to be a protector, provider, we desire to be, the like purpose is our main thing, right?
Mm.
But there's also parts of us that are feminine, like being a creator, being a creative in general is feminine.
Yeah.
Like creativity is feminine, uh,
Exactly.
as well as communication is feminine because a lot of it requires listening and receiving another person's words and behaviors. So
Exactly.
that's a feminine thing. And that I think is the part where people don't understand is like, well, yeah,
Mm.
I'm a masculine person. That's true. You are, but there's a feminine piece of that that allows you to be emotionally intelligent, to socialize properly, to regulate your emotions, to uh, heal your inner child, what we talked about earlier, right? All these things are feminine.
Yeah.
So it's super important to have those traits and those abilities, even as men. It's very, and just as women, women need boundaries. Women need um, a decent work ethic. Like they have to know how to like give themselves at least, a foundation of self improvement. Like have something going on.
Yeah.
Don't just be a lazy person that doesn't do anything, right? So we both need that, and yeah, I just think it's such a when people talk about this, especially on these podcasts that I see in like
Mm.
the popular spaces online, they talk about it like it's a binary thing, and it's just it's not,
No.
unfortunately.
No. No. It is multifaceted. Um,
Hmm.
you know, on the topic of sort of men's health,
Yeah.
you said about the testosterone sort of
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
being low. I like that's a given,
Yep.
and it neatly coincides with again this push for uh,
Oh yeah.
for a demasculization of men.
Yep.
So
Yep.
my sort of top five foods for muscle growth and testosterone sort of boosting will
Hmm.
be mainly those foods that look at the full amino acid profiles.
Mm.
So there's nine, I believe, amino acids that we don't produce, the body cannot produce without food. So
Yeah.
number one is tricolor quinoa. So
Mm.
this is like a pseudo grain. Again, it has the full amino acid spectrum. Really, really good alternative to use other than like pasta or rice.
Mm.
And then you've got hemp protein powder,
Hmm.
hemp
Yep.
seeds generally. Again,
Hmm.
another full amino. You can add it to any sweet desserts, anything like that. Really, really good. And then you're looking again at the likes of chia seeds, pumpkin seeds.
Yep.
Awesome, awesome seeds that you can put on any dish, really versatile. And then you've got the likes of chlorella. Again, this is a superfood algae. And again, it's got around 64 grams of protein per 100 grams. Doesn't taste the
Damn.
best, but it's really nice. You can put it as a intra workout drink during your exercise. And
Mm.
then for me, using supplements like black maca powder, mainly for men, and then you have red maca, which is primarily better for women in terms of their hormonal profile. So these are foods that again I'm promote a lot um, to clients, and I've got sort of food meal plans which have this all sort of outlined, and yeah, I'm really going to get emphasizing how nutrition is again one of the key components for actually being able to return to our true physiological sort of response, and
Hmm.
again get us promoting testosterone, get it flowing again,
Yep.
because
Yep.
it is severely lacking in men. There's a lot of docility, and that
Yep.
was kind of as we know, compounded by certain events that uh, have come and gone. But
Hmm.
if they repeat again, well, yeah, we know it's there's a lot of let's just say malfeasance, a lot of
Yeah.
foul play
Yep.
involved in making men like that. So
Hmm.
we gotta
Oh
shut
yeah.
up. Yeah,
We can go back into that. I mean, it's comes back to like that's probably by design as well. Like
yeah,
having guys be more sedentary, not go outside, not get sunlight, not be in human contact. All that adds up to a
yeah,
lot of health problems. And we're not taught this. We're not taught that sunlight is healthy for you. It produces more vitamin D, therefore producing more testosterone.
yeah,
Being in contact with others increases the quality of your immune system. So you actually build up your immunity to things the more people you're around. Even when
exactly.
getting sick, like just getting sick in general, it might on the outside looking in, it might say, "Oh, well, that's bad. You get sick." It's actually a good thing that you get sick because your body then creates antibodies, so you actually prevent future sickness of
Yeah,
that same thing. So there's a lot of there's a lot of layers to that as well. Um,
definitely.
but to tie into the testosterone thing, we're at some critical times here with testosterone. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I saw a statistic that said the average testosterone level 30, 40 years ago was like 900, 800 milli. I forget the exact units of measurement, but it's like 800 to 900. I think it's mgl or something like that.
yeah.
Nowadays in 2024, doctors say it's normal if you're like at three, like the lowest is 300 or 200.
Wow.
And to be honest, if you're a guy that has 200 or 300 mlg whatever of testosterone, that's not good. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you have enough to be alive and functioning, but you don't have enough to actually enjoy your life. You're
Mm,
like barely you're barely alive at that point. You're kind of just like going through the motions.
yeah,
Um,
you're surviving. You're not
you're
thriving.
surviving 100%, 100%, and that's what. Again, another piece of like the misinformation, I mean, even from the medical community, they tell you that yeah, it's 300. It's very low. Like optimal
Yeah,
levels are at least 750, I believe, or above, like 700 to 800. Um,
yeah,
even mine, I got mine checked like a couple years ago. Mine aren't even at optimal levels. I think I'm like
no,
650, maybe like a little over 600, which is
yeah,
decent. It's not bad, but not as high as the average used to be a few years ago.
yeah. It's again, all of this stuff is kind of it's happening on a subtle level.
Yeah.
Again, it ties into what is invisible
Uh
is
huh.
is showing up visibly,
Facts.
and I can just list off a few that are impeding our hormonal actual hormone general function,
Yep.
i.e., testosterone. Testosterone is essentially hormones are just chemical messengers,
Mm-hmm.
and when they can't get to their receptor sites, imagine like a landing pod. They're blocked by certain things, so they end up
Yeah.
going dysfunctional within the body.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the best things for that is to stop drinking out of plastic.
Yep.
Um, I don't know if people do know about this, but there are microplastics within a lot of store bought plastic bottles,
Mm-hmm.
and they leak into the water. And again, they're going to cause that imbalance when you drink it.
Yep.
That's a key. Another one is keeping your phone in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So the studies are there to prove that it interferes with your sperm motility. So how
Yep.
your sperm are swimming, basically how they're moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, there's a lot of it is the food. So the foods are listed there. They're going to make sure that you're getting your optimal dosage. But obviously, you need to be exercising, you need to be lifting, you need to be moving,
Yep.
and I can only say with the working out, it just is a lovely effect. The carry on effect from just training your body instead of seeing it as like a arduous, like a slog. Like it's like, oh, I gotta go train. Like it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no,
Mm-hmm.
it's physiological hygiene.
Yeah.
You wouldn't not brush your teeth for like a week, right? Well, at
Yep.
least I don't. Yeah. Um, so it's the same with working out. Same with training your abode. Your abode is your body. It's the
Mm-hmm.
only home you have in essence, and without it working properly, how do you expect other things in your life to work?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's it. It's
Yeah.
working inwards. Working inwards, working out is working inwards. I'll
Mm-hmm.
say it again.
It's true. It's so true. I mean, we're not human bodies are just not designed to sit around all day and be on the couch and not be active. Because if
Yeah,
you just look at history. I mean, we have science that proves, back in like prehistoric times or Neanderthals and stuff. I mean, there was no fat people that existed back then, and that was for a
yeah,
reason. Like they were constantly moving, running away from predators, and hunting, and uh,
exactly.
they didn't eat a lot of food. They didn't eat as much food as we do now because we have
Yeah.
convenience and we have the luxuries of modern technology. But man, back
Hmm.
then there was no obesity that existed back then. That just did not happen. Like sedentary lifestyles. I don't think it was a thing until
Yeah,
technology started to become more prevalent into society.
yeah.
So yeah,
It's convenient.
we're not designed to exactly. We're not designed to be convenient, comfortable, sedentary beings. Like we're supposed to move and be
Yeah,
active. And a lot of that affects the way we feel too.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the biggest takeaway from all of this is
Yeah,
when you move, it's the health is the default condition of the body,
exactly.
and movement is inherent to achieving that. And there's a reason why when you tap into what is basically not promoted, that's how you actually start to realize, well, you start to think, well, hang on, how come, going into the sun, how come fasting, for example, all
Mm.
these
Mm-hmm.
innate things aren't promoted
Yeah.
and they have the best return for your health.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that when you sleep, your body recovers, it repairs. It's because your body, it's whatever is powering, whatever's animating your body. It
Yep.
wants you to be healthy. It loves you, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And then now, the only way for that to foster that relationship is for you to love yourself.
Mm.
And then it goes, really, what it is self love.
Mm.
And it took me, I've not always been in tip top shape, um,
Yep.
but as soon as I started to realize, oh, I need to eat this, I need to eat more of this, I need to work out more, I need to start thinking more positively, then I was practicing self love without even realizing it.
Yep.
And that's what people need to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
This is our vehicle of expression.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so more movement, more better choices. 80 to 20% rule is quite a good one in terms of what food you're putting inside you. And then
Yep.
again, if you're letting something in that is toxic in your heart, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, but you eat it anyway. You're basically showing that you don't love yourself in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
there's a balance with that. It's okay every now and then. Don't get me wrong, but if
Mm-hmm.
it's consistent, if you're not offsetting it or mitigating it in some way, then you're basically telling yourself that you don't respect yourself enough,
Mm-hmm.
and
100%.
that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because discipline is the ultimate act of self love. I mean, that's how I view it. Like
Yeah,
being not being hard on yourself necessarily, but it's loving yourself enough to know that I'm gonna fuel my body with the things that give it the best uh, uh,
yeah,
uh, ability to perform
yeah,
at a high level. Like I'm not gonna put trash into my body because I know I'm gonna feel like trash. Like I'm gonna eat well, eat
mm,
cleanly because I feel the best when that happens. And I'm gonna work
yeah,
out because not only do I look better, but I feel better when I start to work out.
yeah,
And all these things, I mean, I know there's some people that might look at that and say, well, it's easy for you to say because you're in shape and you
mm,
think positively and you have things going well for yourself. It's like,
mm,
man, do you realize all this could be taken away in the matter of a month? Like if I sit on my ass and don't do anything and it's like if I shut down the business, if I stop working on myself, if I just stop being mindful, all of that's gone. Like I'll be just as miserable and depressed as anyone.
yeah,
It's like there's no secret formula or magic pill to being this way. It's just
no,
do you just put it into your schedule and do you have discipline or do you not? It's as simple
yeah,
as that.
exactly. We're the only ones that can destroy ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
No one else can do that unless obviously we allow that to happen.
Mhm.
So you kind of let your guard down, and that guard actually is something called a biofield.
Mm.
So we have this again invisible field which surrounds us at all times. It's actually like a, you could call it like a external organ that we have that actually contains 80% of our immune system.
Mm.
And there's loads of things that affect the integrity of that field. And we've just referred to a few there.
Mhm.
And when you're doing that consistently, you lower its ability to protect you, to defend you.
Yep.
And so what we're dealing with is there's kind of rules involved. There's some rules involved in how we navigate this space with this body. And again, it comes to the awareness that we're more than just what we look at in the mirror.
Mhm.
The physicality that we can see is an expression of what is happening within us.
Yeah.
And if you keep getting signs that are saying, or thoughts, negative thoughts, that means that you've got to address that. And my message really to people is don't ignore the signs that keep happening to you, because by making certain sort of choices, you can experience a better life quality.
Mhm.
And everyone knows what they are. And when you see it like a game, are you in the game to win, or are you gonna let yourself be destroyed by
Mm.
purposely not listening to yourself, not tapping into your heart?
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah, man. That's a perfect way to segue to closing it out, man. I don't know if I could add anything to that because that's so true. That's
Absolutely.
so true. Yeah,
There's
brother.
yeah, man. It's been good, bro.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. I think we talked a lot about more or less it was about health, but I mean there was a lot of
Mm,
layers to the health aspect of it. It
yeah.
was about like we talked about testosterone, immunity. We talked about mindfulness, meditation, heart space. I mean, there's a lot here, and
Mm,
like I say in all my conversations of these podcasts, like if you missed it, you're gonna want to come back and watch this a few times because there's a lot of stuff that we covered,
mm,
and if you want to get the whole, if you really want to take in everything we said, you're gonna want to watch it probably a couple times
yeah.
and some people might be like, "Well, it's an hour long. How am I going to do that?" Literally, this is what I do. I just put the thing on like when I'm driving. Obviously, don't watch us when you're driving, but
Mm,
have the video playing. Put it on a 2 speed. Put it on 0.15. It'll go over quickly, so then you can get more of the information faster. That's how I read
yeah.
my audiobooks. So yeah, that this was a good discussion, man. I'm glad we were able to have it today.
Definitely, definitely. And yeah, and just on the back of that, when you can pause videos and go back to them. So
Yep. Yep.
you know, um,
Yep.
this would be ideal for that. So
Hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah, man. Where can people find you if they want to look more into your content and the things you're doing?
So I'm mostly on Instagram at ajp dot holistic, HOLISTIC, and yeah, watch out for more content, especially around the topics we've discussed. And yeah, I'm excited to be at the forefront of this, really,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
100%. Yeah, and if you guys want to check him out, obviously I'll leave his links down below if you want to see more of his content. You know where my stuff is at. My Instagram and all my other channels are in here. If you enjoyed the podcast, give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy conversations like the ones we just had. And if you want to work with me personally, I have my links down below. I'm in the midst of creating a new program, one that revolves around men, specifically men finding their purpose and attracting higher quality relationships. So if you're interested in that and you want to start working on that area of your life, click that down below and we'll set up a call. But other than that, I want to thank my guest for hopping on. I appreciate the conversation. I thought it was very, very thought provoking dialogue. And I hope a lot of guys get value out of this. And hopefully we can do one again in the future, man. This was fun.
Yeah, I'd really like to delve into some other topics for sure, man. There's plenty to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
you know, let's go.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna get going. Hope y'all have a great rest of your day, week, wherever you're at in the world. Peace out. Catch you next time.